14.3 Session Plan, Session and Program Reviews. Risk Assessment. Hazards. Faulty equipment, people at risk, client and trainer. Controls to be in place. Before the session, remove or fix the broken equipment or warn client of any potential broken equipment. Likelihood 2, Outcome 1, Risk Rating 3. Actions necessary. Check equipment before session starts. Water on the floor and someone slips over. People at risk, clients and trainers. Controls to be in place. Before the session, tell your client to put their water bottles neatly to the side of the court. Likelihood 2. Outcomes 2. Risk rating 4. Actions necessary. No water in the sports hall. Check floor for any liquids. Equipment left out and someone trips over it. People at risk, clients and trainer. Before the session starts, ask your client to put bags neatly with her water bottle at the side of the court. Likelihood 1. Outcome 2. Risk rating 3. Clear all equipment before and after the session. Overworking the client. People at risk, client and trainer. Controls to be in place. I will set the intensity and level of the exercise appropriate for my client. Likelihood 1. Outcome 2. Risk rating 3. Actions necessary. Set the exercises to an appropriate level. No warm-up or cool-down. People at risk, clients. Controls to be in place. Make a reminder on the session plan to have a proper warm-up and cool-down. Likelihood 1. Outcome 3. Risk rating 4. Actions necessary. Make sure before every session you have a warm-up and perform a cool-down at the end of the exercise. Jewellery or wristbands. People at risk, client or trainers. Controls to be in place. Before the session, ask the client to remove any jewellery, wristbands or piercings. Likelihood 1. Outcome 3. Risk rating 4. Actions necessary. Tell clients that they must take off any jewellery. Client parquet. My client's resting heart rate was 75 beats per minute. The average resting heart rate is between 60 and 90 beats per minute, showing she has an average heart rate. Target heart rate zone values. My client was working at 70% of their maximal heart rate, which was 148 beats per minute. The average heart rate target zone is 142 to 162, which is 70 to 80% of the maximal heart rate. Resting blood pressure. My client's resting blood pressure was 129/73. The average blood pressure is 120/80, showing that my client has an average blood pressure. Peak flow results. My client's peak flow results was 376. The average peak flow results is 400 to 410 for a teenage female. This shows that she's slightly below average. BMI. For my client's size and height, she was 0.89. The average BMI for a female of her size is 0.86, showing that she is average for BMI. Client's aims. Session aims. My client's aim was to improve their muscular endurance, to improve her muscular strength, and also to improve her overall fitness levels. In the session, we will be focusing on working on improving her muscular endurance and her muscular strength in her legs and abdominals. How are these aims specific to the client's aims, and how will they be measured to check for success? Muscular endurance and muscular strength are my client's weakest components of fitness. When looking at the tests we did in the session before, my client would also like to improve her overall fitness levels, which will improve with this session as we will be working on muscular endurance. Muscular endurance is important as it's one of her weakest components of fitness, which is important for a netball player as it will mean she can keep throwing long passes and keep shooting throughout the game. It will also mean that she can keep running for long periods of the game. Due to being one of her weakest components of fitness, it will improve her overall fitness levels as we will be working on her weaknesses. We will measure her success by measuring her heart rate at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session to see if she was working at 70 to 80% of her maximal heart rate. Muscular strength is important as it allows her to make strong passes which will have less chance of getting intercepted and increase the chances of scoring and winning the game. It will also help her hold off defenders when getting free. It's also one of her weakest components of fitness, so working on muscular strength will improve her overall fitness levels. We will measure this by seeing if she increases the amount of squats, and she does, and by increasing the plank to see if she is getting better at holding it for longer periods of time. Exercise session content 1. Location. The session will take place in Basvik Sports Hall on the court. Facility needs. For my session I will only need a quarter of the sports hall as I will be doing muscular endurance and muscular strength in a small space. Resources needs. For equipment I will need for my session is a rowing machine, a mat for when she does the 1 minute plank, and finally 3 kilogram weights for when my client does the 1 minute squats and planks. I will also need a stopwatch for keeping the time for the 1 minute plank and squats and 30-second breaks. Health and safety considerations. When starting the session, I will make sure my client isn't wearing any jewelry or wristbands, which could cause any serious injuries. I will also make sure all equipment and water bottles are put away neatly to the side with lids on bottles to prevent my client tripping or slipping over. To begin with, I will make sure my client has the correct technique when doing her warm-up, as this will prevent any muscle or joint injuries. I will also make sure she is properly warmed up, as if not she could pull a muscle. Throughout the session, when doing the row machine and the 1 minute plank and squats, I will make sure that my client has the correct technique for all of these activities to prevent injuries and get the most out of the exercise. Finally, when we are doing the cool down, I will make sure she is doing the correct technique for each stretch to prevent injuries and pulled muscles. Emergency procedures. If there is a fire in the sports hall, then I will get my client to leave out the nearest fire exit to ensure their safety. After I have made sure my client is safe, then I'll call 999 and ask for the immediate of the fire brigade. If my client feels ill at any point during the session, I will ask them to take a 5-minute break and after ask them how they feel. If they still feel ill, then I'll suggest going home and getting rest. If my client has a headache injury, then I will sit them out for the rest of the session and give her ice for her head and water to drink. Then, if my client twists her ankle, then I will tell her to rest it whilst I find ice to put on the swelling and a towel to compress the ice to the swollen ankle, which will reduce the swelling. I will then pull up a chair in front of where she is sitting and move her foot onto the chair to elevate it. Depending on how serious it is, I will call an ambulance. Issues arising from risk assessment. If there is equipment left out, my client could trip over, which could cause serious head injuries or back injuries. Meaning before the session starts, I will make sure there isn't any equipment left out. If my client is wearing jewellery or wristbands, then before the session I will ask them to take it off, as this could cause injuries like broken fingers. If we go straight into a warm-up, then my client will increase the chance of getting muscle injuries like pulled muscles. So I'll make sure at the beginning of the session that we will do a good thorough warm-up that will warm up my client so that preventing any muscle injuries. If there is faulty equipment, then my client could increase the risk of getting muscle injuries, fractures, or dislocated bones. So before the session starts, I will go around checking the equipment and seeing if we can fix it, or if not, I will warn my client about the equipment before the session starts. Exercise session content 2. Warm-up. Introduction. When I first meet my client, I will act professionally as I'm a personal trainer and have a responsibility to not only improve her fitness but to also keep her safe. Throughout the training program, I will start by greeting her and telling her my name and explaining what I do and how I can help my client. I will give her a lifestyle questionnaire to complete, together with a medical questionnaire and a PAR-Q. This will identify any issues or concerns. When she is completing the questionnaires, I will be asking questions about her interests and hobbies. I will be behaving responsibly and sociably to make her feel relaxed and in a safe environment. Warm-up. I will start off by doing light static stretches like chest stretch, lower back stretch, and quadricep stretch, and hamstring stretch. Next, I will move on to light dynamic stretching like quad pulls, lunges, ankle sweeps, and leg swings. For the static stretching, we will need a mat and space about 3 meters by 3 meters.